It gives me great pleasure, and I mean great pleasure, to introduce my fellow Scot and RI President Gordon McInally. Fresh from Berlin and en route to Alabama and then on to Manila. That's a rigorous travel schedule, as you might imagine. Before I attempt to summarize Gordon's life to date, allow me to set the scene on how today came about, because it's been a long time since our club has had the good fortune to have an actual sitting RI president at our club. Last March, then President Marlin asked me to dedicate the entire lunch meeting to recognize our 13 twin cities in capitals around the world. This proved to be a great example of building goodwill and greater friendships, the third pillar of the four-way test for all of you who know this and the young Rotaractors who will be learning this. All 13 clubs actually participated in one way or another. Those in the distant time zone contributed videos. One of those videos was from the extremely dynamic Manila Club, again, one of our sister clubs in the Philippines, who sent an 11-minute presentation, despite me requesting, please, guys, keep it to 3 minutes. We've got 13 clubs, 3 minutes, 40, Anyway, in the process of trying to reduce it from 11 to 3, I noticed a smiling face of President-elect Gordon McInally along beside President Jennifer Jones, who was president at the time. This triggered an innocent email, absolutely innocent email exchange between two Scotsmen with several common Rotary friends and acquaintances back in Scotland. And it led to Gordon accepting my invitation, I am very grateful you did, Gordon, to visit our club at a convenient time during his presidency. When the final dates were agreed and our club board gave its approval, I proceeded to contact District Governor Dolores Edwards Harding about how to incorporate district-wide and RI activities into Gordon's agenda here in the DC area. Protocols were followed, the best I could, that is, and yesterday was dubbed District Day. This included a series of meetings led by Rich Carlson and Clara Montanez to headquarters of international partners of Rotary, like the OAS, USAID, and the World Bank. The culmination was an impressive reception at the Cosmos Club last night, hosted by, again, DG Dolores, and attended by dignitaries from around our district, 7620, and beyond, including RI and Evanston came, and several past Rotary presidents. It was quite a show from an innocent email exchange last March. Today, our Rotary Club of Washington, D.C. Day, we return to the original basis of Gordon's willingness to come to our club and be our guest speaker. He will also probably add that a byproduct has been a reawakening of my Scottish accent when I am around him. Our entire program today is very much focused on our club's outreach among youth. And we're very happy to have many, and we're going to have 29 more in the library later on. So now, I'll attempt very quickly to summarize what you've already seen. If you actually read the details of our speakers, sometimes you just look at the picture and say, oh yeah, I'll go. Gordon is a dentist by profession. He's held various academic positions. He was a commissioner in the General Assembly of the Church for Scotland, and if you're a Scottish Presbyterian, that's a big deal. He's a member of the Rotary Club of South Queensferry, which is very close to our Twin Cities club in Edinburgh. And he joined when he was 26, only about 20 years ago, is that right, Gordon? A little bit more than that, yeah. His vision, which he'll probably get into, and I'll apologize later for stealing his thunder. His vision is that Rotary should exist everywhere in a style to suit everyone who has a desire to be part of us and our service focus to help others for good in the world. He's also a patron of Hope and Homes for Children, which aim to lift orphans of the Rwandan genocide, if you remember that, folks, out of poverty. He's a patron of Trade Aid, which is started by an English Rotary Club, which focuses on sustainable humanitarian aid to individuals in developing countries. In his free times, he enjoys rugby. We're not going to get into that because Scotland lost to France 10 days ago, so we won't go into that. All right. He strongly supports the Rotary Foundation, as we heard last night at the Cosmos Club, because he describes it as the fuel that provides energy to Rotary service. His wife's Heather, who usually accompanies him, but with this travel schedule, she decided, okay, I've got to slow down a wee bit. He's got to keep going, but I've got to slow down. She's an opera singer, and they're both major donors to Rotary International, as you might imagine, and both are members of the Bequest Society. He's a proud grandfather who has dedicated his presidency to making the world a better place for his two granddaughters, Ivy and Florence, along with children everywhere, to live and thrive. Lastly, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Gordon. It's a major, major focus on mental health issues, and we recognize that in our community. And actually, we heard about it this morning at Check. So, without further ado, Gordon, President of the Rotary International, Gordon McInally. My great pleasure to invite you up here to speak to us today. Thanks, Gordon.
Thank you very much, Mark, for that introduction. Thank you very much for that much too generous welcome. I'm certain I speak for all the guests present today when I say thank you for your hospitality. Although I must admit to a degree of trepidation as I stand before you, having visited the restroom earlier, to find a sign scotch taped to the hot air hand dryer that read, "Press here for a short message from the RI President." Confess, who put that sign on that hand dryer? It is a pleasure to be with you today, just as it has been a privilege to be in Washington, D.C. over the past 48 hours. As you heard, it was my fellow Scot, Mark Wilson, who made the initial introduction, initially, as he told you, by email. But ultimately, what he did not tell you was it was by telephone call. And I remember the telephone call extremely well, because it had been a long time since I had received a call from anywhere. Of course, having accepted the invitation to come here today, we had to negotiate the speaker's fee. And boy, does this man drive a hard bargain. We finally agreed on $50. So I sent Mark the $50, and here I am. To matters, Rotary. You know, it's only when you take stock and stop for a moment and think what it really means to be a member of Rotary that you really appreciate what a wonderful opportunity we have all been given to be part of this great organization. And so the first thing I really want to say today, without appearing patronizing, is thank you. I'm always conscious, as I said last evening in the Cosmos Club, that the two words thank and you are the only remuneration we receive in Rotary. And I'm equally conscious that these words do not always come from those we help, very often for the very best of reasons. So on their behalf, I make no apologies for repeating myself and saying once again, thank you for everything you do in Rotary. These past 111 years have clearly been very special and very important in the lives of the members, present and past, of the Rotary Club of Washington, D.C. But you know, at the end of the day, the sort of time it has been for the members pales into insignificance compared to the sort of time it has been for those you have served and those you have supported over that time. And I know you have supported and served a great many people in a great many different ways. From as far back as 1917, when the club raised over $50,000 for the Red Cross, the equivalent of more than $1 million in today's terms. To your association with the Walter Reed National Military Centre, stretching back to the 1940s, to working on the issues of food security right here in your city, and the wonderful educational projects you do with the youth, like the one we saw at first hand this morning at Columbia Heights Educational Campus. I know it's known as CHECK, and what an appropriate, it's an acronym, but we love acronyms in Rotary, so perhaps I should just refer to it as CHECK. And of course, you're also involved in the training of women in rural El Salvador to raise chickens to improve nutrition, and the provision of scholarships to students in Gambia. All these things and so many more have allowed you to improve the lives of those around you and further afield. Sadly, time does not allow me to go into any more detail, but it is more than evident that this club has achieved that ideal balance that sees you support projects locally and globally, something that is almost unique to the Rotary organization. Rotary, of course, the week that we celebrate our 119th birthday, has come a long way since our founder, Paul Harris, met with 3 of his friends at the first ever Rotary Club meeting and established this organization of which we are so proud to be members. Rotary has come a long way since the initial 16 members of the Rotary Club of Washington, D.C. met during the early months of 1912 when they resolved to form this Rotary Club. And here we are in 2024. The flame of Rotary that was kindled in the windy city of Chicago in 1905, and here in Washington just 7 years later, still burns brightly, not only in these 2 cities, but throughout the entire world. I often wonder if Paul Harris could have imagined on that cold, damp February day 119 years ago what Rotary would become and what Rotary would achieve over the course of its history. I wonder if the original 16 members of the Washington, D.C. Club could have imagined in their wildest dreams what it would achieve over the course of its history. It seems entirely appropriate that I should be addressing you during Peace and Conflict Resolution Month. Peace is such an important part of our mission, and it is to that topic I would like to turn. These are times that are crying out for peace. The Middle East is in its most volatile condition in 50 years. Europe is experiencing its most destructive war since the end of World War II. And there are also wars taking place throughout North and Central Africa. Nearly every continent on Earth has a major armed conflict at this point in time. And like all of you, I believe that Rotary has a vital role to play in advancing the cause of peace. I often say that Rotary needs to work towards peace as aggressively as do those that wish to wage war. It is vital that we do far more than simply just talk about peace. But that isn't to demean the importance of talk. In fact, sometimes the very first step in creating peace is to be willing to talk to one another. The way we talk about peace, the way we model peace-positive behavior is vital to the kinds of actions of which we are capable of taking and the impact we can ultimately deliver. This isn't always so easy in Rotary because our organization really has 3 different personalities, all of which need to complement one another. The one with which we are most comfortable and familiar is the personal and emotional side of Rotary. Very often when Rotary members talk to each other about the imperative of peace, we relay our personal experiences, what we have seen at first hand, and the lives we have seen transformed by our good works. Personally, I was greatly moved and inspired to take action towards peace by taking part in service projects in Rwanda, as you have already heard, after the terrible genocide in that country almost 30 years ago. That experience changed my view of the world, and it brought me hope that Rotary can and must do everything we can to stop tragedies like that one befell other countries. And the story of Claudette and her brother Françoise from Rwanda, two young people that I got to know well, continues to hold special meaning for me. I first met them in 2004 when I visited Rwanda to research Rotary's Africa Hope, a joint project between Rotary in Great Britain and Ireland and the respected NGO Hope and Homes for Children. At that point in time, Claudette was 16 years of age and Françoise was 12. They were orphans, their father having been killed in the 1994 genocide, and their mother having died of AIDS, contracted when she was sexually assaulted by a soldier during the same conflict. These two people had nothing. Their house was falling down around their ears. The roof leaked, the windows were broken, they had no electricity or running water. They were living in abject squalor. I still remember Claudette telling me that at the age of 16, she had never even owned a pair of shoes. Whenever they left the house, they had to gather together their meager possessions and leave them with a neighbor, as their home, such as it was regularly ransacked when empty by people who lived nearby. As a result, they were rarely in education, they were malnourished, and their health was suffering. As a consequence, their future looked bleak. Claudette and Françoise were accepted onto Rotary's Africa Hope project shortly after I met them. And I next visited them 3 years later when I returned to see for myself the effect the project was having. The change was dramatic. They had been rehoused in another part of their village in a secure home. Françoise was attending school on a regular basis and achieving good grades. Claudette was training to be a seamstress with hopes that she could eventually be able to provide for her and her brother by making and selling clothes. A future that looked bleak now looked so much better. And one other thing, Claudette now owned a pair of shoes. In the years since, both Claudette and Françoise have flourished. We still receive news of them. Claudette did indeed go on to become a seamstress, and she was able to provide for herself and Françoise until he too trained as a poultry farmer and gained employment for himself. Their standard of living has increased to the point where they are now self-sustaining with self-respect and not having to live within a dependency culture. And that was all they ever asked for. You know, as long as we continue to experience transformative stories like these, we need to keep sharing them, because feeling the imperative for peace compels us to act upon it. But emotion and personal experience alone is not enough. For an organization like Rotary to have its greatest impact on the world, we need to be systemic, thorough, and evidence-based. And this brings me to Rotary's second personality, that of a highly professional, international humanitarian and development organization. To succeed as an organization devoted to peace, Rotary must work closely with aligned international organizations. And we do exactly that with organizations such as the Institute for Economics and Peace, which originated the 8 pillars of positive peace. Rotary's peace system works well within these pillars, and they help inform it. And so Rotary has a well-developed peace system that is making an impact globally. Rotary is also a practitioner of peace, fighting disease, providing clean water and sanitation, improving the health of mothers and children, supporting education, and growing local economies, all of which build directly the optimal conditions for peaceful societies. And we are advocates for peace. Rotary acts as a respected, impartial actor within communities that have been afflicted by conflict and division. Through the simple act of bringing people together, Rotary members create and support communities that are connected, that are inclusive, and that are resilient. We are also conveners of peace. Our members have negotiated humanitarian ceasefires in areas of conflict to allow polio vaccinators to reach children who are at risk. And we are educators in peace. Our Rotary Peace Centres have trained over 1,700 Peace Fellows to become effective catalysts for peace through careers in government, education, and international organisations. And many of them have founded peace and development organisations themselves to create positive change in communities around the world. When we combine the personal and systemic, we have tremendous potential to create meaningful, lasting change in the world. And that opens up room for Rotary's third personality, the one I call the aspirational Rotary. Because in Rotary, from our earliest days, we have always had a vision of our organisation as something more than just the people we see right in front of us and the direct results of our service projects. We had a vision to help rebuild the world after World War II. We then took part in the drafting of the UN Charter, and we remain a vital partner for UN agencies more than 75 years later. We had a vision for eradicating polio from the world, and we are 99.9% of the way there. We dream big. This is why we call ourselves people of action. This is why we commit ourselves to diversity, equity, and inclusion, to belonging. And this is why we envisage ourselves as global peace builders. It's the same spirit as found in the poems of Scotland's national poet, Robert Burns. In the 18th century, Burns spoke of the world becoming brothers and sisters, promoting sense and worth over all the earth. And this spirit is equally apparent in our vision statement of together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities and in ourselves. When it comes to lofty aspirations like these, we must never lose sight of that last call, that to bring about greater change in the world, we also need to foster change within. For Rotary to live up to our full potential, we must do better in the way we create peaceful relations within our communities, within our clubs, and within our personal relationships to promote greater understanding member to member. We must show empathy. I'm reminded of a speech made by former US Senator Robert Kennedy on the evening of the 4th of April, 1968, that terrible day when one of my great inspirations, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., was assassinated. Senator Kennedy was in Indianapolis, Indiana, and he spoke before an audience of African Americans who at the time were unaware that Dr. King had been killed. He shared the terrible news. He honored Dr. King for all he had done for the cause of justice and peace. And then he connected with the angry crowd by saying, "For those of you who are Black and are tempted to be filled with hatred and distrust against all white people at the injustice of such an act, I can only say that I feel in my own heart the same kind of feeling. I had a member of my family killed." It was the first time Robert Kennedy had ever spoken publicly about his brother, President John Kennedy's assassination. And while many American cities exploded in violence that night, Indianapolis did not. So it is in time of greatest crisis and despair that we need empathy most of all. Let us find a way to share each other's outrage, share each other's hurt, and share each other's seemingly hopeless cry for justice and peace. Let us be the brothers and sisters who join as one, so that as an organization, as a movement, as a family, we can find that sense and worth over all the earth that Robert Burns wrote of. We cannot solve all the world's problems at a stroke, but we can begin to understand and appreciate each other a little better and agree on the first brave, humble steps towards a more peaceful world. My friends, and I hope I am not being overly presumptuous in using that term, thank you once again for allowing me to spend time with you today. Each and every one of you is a credit to the badge you wear, and I am proud, very proud, to belong to the same organization as you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, President, for your very kind words. I'm from Rwanda, and I just want to appreciate what Rotary International has done in my country. The testimony he has just given is true. Rotary has invested or supported us in so many projects that are helping to improve the lives of our people. You know, access to water, clean water, cancer patients, polio, so many projects that my country has benefited in through the kind support that we get from Rotary International. And I'm told soon you'll be visiting Kigali, Rwanda. We can't be more than happy to receive you there. And thank you so much for the kind words you just said now. I just want to say it's the truth. I'm just a testament to that. Thank you so much.
For each speaker, our club has a tradition. We plant a tree in the honor of each person who speaks here at our club. And we are extremely honored to be able to plant a tree in your name. And there's also this championship fight for youth. This is our year's initiative pin. That's for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And also the Trees of the Capitol. And the Trees of the Capitol is one of our environmental projects that we do. We've been doing it for years. So you can find your tree by using the coordinates, but I mean, you'll probably be in Scotland and everything. So
I'll come back and make a point of finding it.
Okay. All right. So thank you so much.